the New York Times should be embarrassed about this article they just wrote.
Yes, because you just read my mind. Keep going.
There's this little bit about Froot Loops, and they're sort of debunking what he said about Froot Loops being different in Canada than in the U.S. And then you read this paragraph, and it says, oh, no, the ingredients are the same, except for where they come from. In Canada, they come from blueberry and carrots, but in the U.S., it comes from food coloring, bromine, whatever. I can't even pronounce all these chemicals. And they wanted to claim that this is the same because the same ingredients. And it's like, it just proves the point, essentially. And I think parents and a lot of people voted, for the Maha movement, if you will, because they see it too. They don't want their kids to be sick and poisoned by what they're putting in the food.
Welcome to the Michele Tafoya podcast.
So if you recognize that man, he is Daniel Negreanu, and you're probably a poker fan. He's already in the Poker Hall of Fame. He's only 50 years old. This guy is so interesting. His parents came from communist Romania and moved to Canada, where he was born and raised, but he became a U.S. citizen because he likes playing poker in Vegas. So why wouldn't you? He's the only player in the World Series of Poker to win the Player of the Year twice. Only one. And his earnings are estimated to be upwards of $54 million. So you're going to hear from him. Before I go any further, please subscribe. Get a friend to subscribe. Get a family member to subscribe. It's totally free. All it requires is that you hit that little subscribe button that you see right there on your screen. Just hit subscribe. It helps keep this show afloat. It helps keep us moving and growing, and we appreciate your listenership. And it helps you have access to guests like this. Now, Daniel Negreanu may be a Hall of Fame poker player, but the attention he's been getting in the last month has nothing to do with poker and has, interestingly, more of his attention than even poker does. Like, he loves talking about this stuff, as he said to me off camera, more than poker. But he is a fun guy, a fascinating guy. If you know him, you already know that. If you don't know him, you're going to want to listen. This is a great conversation. And there's no poker face going on here. Daniel Negreanu is next. Daniel, I love that a guy who's known as a poker player with a poker face, and not always, but, because you've got a lot of personality, was willing to go out. And by the way, you were born in Canada, right?
That is correct.
And now, do you have dual citizenship?
Well, oddly enough, I became a citizen years ago so I could vote. Like, that was my main objective.
Seriously?
I really wanted to, be a part of the political process and have my say. And I really wanted to vote against a certain specific individual that was running.
You want to say who that was?
Yeah. Well, frankly, when I came here, and obviously I grew up with the, majority of my views are liberal, if you will. And, I didn't really like what Donald Trump had to offer. And I thought back then I felt like Hillary Clinton, as much as there is to like or dislike, I felt like she was a policy wonk more so than anybody else and really well prepared. And I thought, it was a better choice than Donald Trump back then. Right. And, a lot's changed since then.
Yeah, a lot has changed. So let's go back to 2016. How surprised were you that Trump pulled that off?
Yeah, it's funny because I remember it's funny when you're outside of this bubble and you look back, you're like, well, what the hell? Why did I care that much anyway? I was really distraught about it. I was shocked that, he would win based on what he said because he broke the mold for politics. Like, there were so many things that he'd said along the way that were totally disqualifying. You're like, Oh no, look what he said. He called them rapists. That would have been it for every other politician in history. But instead, every time he said something disqualifying, it seemed to grow his movement.
Which is fascinating. And I think there was a lot of this sense that, we've been told to shut up and be politically correct for so often. Here's this guy who's he's got an FU resume, he's got an FU bank account, and he can say and do whatever he wants. And I kind of like that. And by the way, he's a billionaire who doesn't really talk like you would expect a billionaire to talk. How much do you think all of that stuff captured the imagination of the voters?
Well, I think it was a big deal. I think even more so in this election than the first time that he won. I think, there's such a growth in sort of this woke ideology of political correctness and watching your P's and Q's, and certain words are off limits. And then, you can no longer call somebody a Latino. No, it's Latinx. I'm like, who decided this? Was it them? No, it was a bunch of white kids from Berkeley,
Exactly.
They don't want to be called Latinx. It's awkward and weird.
Yeah,
so I think that growth of like, and then the whole, I think for a lot of people, the gender ideology, the idea that you can have your own pronouns as though they're ownership. By the way, Michelle, you didn't ask me my preferred adjectives.
I didn't.
They're luxurious and majestic, if you don't mind.
Ooh,
yeah.
Wow. Those are good, man. Luxurious and majestic. You fit the bill. So you, and like you, we all survived the first 4 years of President Trump. But COVID hit, and a lot of people were pissed off about the way that was handled, whether it be by Trump or in the States or whatever. When you got the chance again to vote in 2020, what did you do, if you don't mind my asking?
Oh, see, I'll tell you what. I think Joe Biden's a good man. I really do. I do. It's obvious that he, his mental acuity declined. I would bet a pretty penny as a poker player that Joe Biden and Jill Biden voted for Donald Trump in this election. I mean, listen, she wore all red. Okay, that's not an accident. At that level, politicians understand the message they're sending. That was no joke. And then when he met, welcomed in the Oval Office, I've never seen a smile that big. So I think that even Biden did. But I think Biden's a good man, and I voted for Joe Biden again in that election. And that changed when they threw Kamala Harris at me.
So when they threw Kamala Harris at you, what did you think? I mean, what did you think about that process, for starters?
Well, I was really offended, if you will. I was just disappointed and shocked that, weeks before, if you watched all the pundits, they talked about maybe we should replace her on the ticket because she's so unpopular.
Right.
The most unpopular VP in history. Then all of a sudden, Meg Stallion's at a concert, and then there's joy, and all this sort of stuff. And then I think ultimately, it's amazing to me just how inauthentic she was.
Yeah.
All the positions that she previously held, any question you asked her, the answer was the same. Look, I'm not Joe Biden. I grew up in a middle-class family with aspirations, dreams, and ambitions, right?
Yes.
No matter what the question was,
No
it took her 2 minutes to get to an answer. And it's obviously, I think what America just decided here was they appreciate authenticity. Mm-hmm. And many people who voted for Trump don't like him. They don't like the guy. They don't want him to, watch their children or whatever, but they're sending him into a jungle, right? As a savage, to go into one of the ugliest places in America, in Washington, to do a dirty, ugly job. So while they wouldn't want him necessarily, running a junior high school, they're happy to have him, in charge of being in an ugly place.
And the ugly place extends beyond DC. I mean, the world has gotten very ugly, and we need a strong America again. I don't know if you saw this, but while Joe Biden's been down in Rio de Janeiro at this summit, he's been relegated to a really minor player, whether it be in photographs, in conversations, whatever it's been. That is to me, that I can't recall another time that an American president, whether they were lame duck or not, was treated like that, as though they had kind of no significance in the world. Now, you can say Joe Biden's a good man, but right now he's a very lame duck man.
Oh, there's no question that both things can be true, right?
Yeah.
I think the way he was treated was sad and embarrassing, you know, by the entire party, discarding him in the way that they did. It's obvious, he had a decline mentally. But, as you point out with what's going on now and stuff, I think my biggest concern or fear when Trump became president was I thought that was going to lead us to World War III. Right. Instead, what happened was, there was no war in Gaza. There was no war in Ukraine. And, he had the Abraham Accords. And for some reason, this guy is like the dictator whisperer. And, so many, in the media condemn him for being friendly with Kim Jong-un and Putin and all these people. And I wonder, if he's friendly with them, and let's say they are using him for little things here and there, if that keeps us safe, right? Having those types of relationships, isn't that better than, a Dick Cheney, saying go war and then, endorsing Kamala?
The other thing is, I remember an old phrase, Daniel, and it's keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. And I just wonder how much of this is, crazy like a fox brilliance of understanding that, he's going to be publicly nice to these guys. And maybe that makes them more malleable when we're not looking.
Well, yeah, exactly that. I think that, you make the great analogy there, with the keep your enemies close, or whatever the case may be.
Friends
And
close, enemies closer.
Yeah, and I think this case, it really holds true. And again, a lot of the fears that I had, going into this election, my number one priority is like national security, immigration, the threat of radical Islamist ideology, and I thought, like, well, who is more likely to address those in a way that keeps us safer? Now, all these other issues, I might not agree with Republicans or Democrats or whatever, but then I have to prioritize myself. And everyone prioritizes differently, right? For some women, abortion was number one. And hey, if that's your number one issue, then, you're obviously going to vote for the Democrats, if you will. For others, nationals, for me, all these small little issues like taxes and different things pale in comparison to our safety as a nation and, safety abroad, really.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, like when I looked at these issues and women who were putting abortion at the top of their list, I was thinking, who doesn't have reproductive rights anymore is Laken Riley and Rachel Morin, and these women who died at the hands of people who were here in our country illegally, who broke the law to get in. And then, little Jocelyn Nungari in Houston, who I can't even think about that because I have a daughter a little older than that, and it just makes me sick. But I mean, to me, it's like, what public safety has to be tops. I think that is the government's number one responsibility, to keep the people, the taxpayers, the citizens safe and keep the world as safe as possible. So I'm with you there. All right. The tweet that went viral. I actually, I am a very opinionated, strong person. My husband is too, but he doesn't organize his life around it, kind of like I do.
Yeah.
So when he showed me this post, I was so curious. Here we go. So I have told you I've been having some trouble sleeping because of my shoulder surgeries and other reasons. We're all stressed. I finally found something that really works, and it's not, you don't take it. It's not a prescription. It's not a drug. It is a cream. And so at bedtime, what I do is I put it on the insides of my forearms, the bottoms of my feet. Listen, I was a skeptic, but I tried it and I'm amazed. It really works, and I've been sleeping great. The company is Sleep Cream, and they use all natural CBD combined with the finest essential oils. You'll love the rose scented one. There's also lavender. I just, like I said, before I turn in, bottoms of my feet, inside of my forearms, and within minutes, I am relaxed and I'm allowed to do what I'm supposed to do, which is sleep. You can find them at sleepcream.com, and that's CREME, sleepcream.com. Try it for a couple of nights, see if it works for you as well as it does for me. And if you don't experience better sleep, Sleep Cream will refund your purchase, guaranteed. You don't have to return anything. Go to sleepcream.com, CREME.com, sleepcream.com. And for the next few weeks, use the code GAMEDAY at checkout, and you will get standard shipping free. Are you ready for the best sleep ever? Sleepcream.com, sleep, CREME. Use the code GAMEDAY for free standard shipping. This is from November 7th, 2024. The fact that America overwhelmingly looked past felonies and an impeachment should tell you just how much people aren't aligned with the direction the Democrat National Party has taken. So, yeah, I mean, you talked about the things that Donald Trump is for, but there's this other part that you mentioned earlier in our conversation that people aren't aligned with, like the gender ideology, like critical race theory. Are those the kinds of things you were talking about that the Democrats prioritized?
Yeah, actually, the tweet you're referencing was this follow-up. The one before that was even more viral than that one.
Oh, shoot. We got to find that one. Daniel, thanks for setting me straight. You conspired to block Bernie. This again, folks, 2016, when the Democrat National Committee said, yeah, we don't want Bernie to run, so let's figure out a way to not get him on the ticket. You discarded and defamed Tulsi Gabbard. They still are. We'll get back to that. You didn't invite Elon Musk to a summit on electric vehicles? Like, that is amazing, isn't it?
It's just crazy.
This is crazy. You blocked RFK Jr. and others from having any path to make their cause in the primary. No question. You embraced wokeism and identity politics, demonizing the evil white cisgender male population, extra scorn for those who have attained financial wealth. You further insult them by telling them that they didn't vote for Kamala because they are racist and misogynist. Yeah, that's for you, Sonny Hostin. You then anointed the most unpopular vice president of all time and tried to gaslight us into thinking she is the next coming because Meg Stallion shook her ass on stage to get the vote out because joy. What exactly did you expect would happen? These are your sins. Will you learn from them or continue to repeat them? America has spoken, and they are not buying what the DNC is selling. Wake up call. Boom. Did that just flow, or was this something germinating in your mind for a while?
Well, obviously I had a lot of thoughts, and I remember I was actually making food for my dogs, and I was starting to write this in a note, and I was like, I don't know if I want to send this, because obviously when you get involved and, online, you get the back and forth and stuff like that. But I'm like, you know what? I think this is an important enough statement that I want to be said, because ultimately, you know what I believe? I believe it's good for America to have at least two healthy parties that stay within sanity, right? I don't want either party to go too far to the extreme. We want normalcy like it used to be, right? When Ronald Reagan was president, everyone loved him, whether you were a Democrat or a Republican. And I want to get back to that, where all Americans kind of root for each other. And we're nowhere near that now. I think it's quite divided. And a lot of that has to do with, frankly, social media across the board.
And social media and the dying mainstream media, which, really, again, I think played a big part in this election by the way that they characterized Trump. And we've seen now that the co-hosts of Morning Joe, Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough, went down to Mar-a-Lago, met with Trump for the first time in 7 years after they used words like Hitler, white supremacist, fascist. I mean, they compared his Madison Square Garden rally to a Hitler rally from 1939. And yet, by the fact that they went down there over the weekend, Daniel, doesn't that kind of demonstrate to you that they didn't really think he was Hitler?
Well, yeah, no question about it, right? And I have an admission to make here myself. Just like most people, as a result of social media, probably I was stuck in a bubble myself, where I was embarrassed to say that not until I think May of this year did I finally actually watch the video where Trump says there are fine people on both sides. I hadn't watched it before. I only saw what the media had spun, and I said, he thinks, Nazis are good. And then I watched it and I was like, oh my God, he literally says flat out, I'm not talking about neo-Nazis and white supremacists. He's talking about those that don't think historic monuments should come down. And those are fine people, as well as some debating on the other side. And then to just really go down the rabbit hole of seeing how much spin happened. And then frankly, even in this campaign, continuing to repeat that lie. And then the bloodbath lie. And there's just so many that keep adding up, where it's like, you really are, you have enough on Trump that you could go on that's true, right? You could talk about the porn star stuff. There's a whole bunch of things you can, attack him on that are true. Why are you lying? He mentioned fake news many times throughout his campaign, and you're literally proving him right by doing this stuff. And there's no reason for it. And a lot of people, I think, due to X and other things, were woken up to the fact that no, look past it. Look past the bubble and see that, a lot of this stuff is just media spin.
A lot of people talk about that fine people hoax thing and that video, and finally sitting down to watch it. What made you do it?
Well, I don't know. I think it was my wife's brother was there, and, I was with him, and, I watched the video and I was like, wait a minute. And I had to watch it again to make sure that it wasn't clipped or edited or something like that from a different time. And I was like, wow, that's crazy, because it was like, then you look at I think it was a post on X, I think, that I saw. Okay. Sort of comparing what he said and then reading the articles about, what he just that he stands for white supremacy. And then there's another video I watched where they say he will not denounce white supremacy. And then there's a video of him literally doing it 30 times, Yeah.
Grilling is in season right now because of football and you're tailgating, but also I've got the best gift idea for the favorite griller in your life. You just need to know about my friends at besthotgrill.com. So wherever you're going, if you're going out on a boat, if you're tailgating at a college football game, if you're just having a picnic, the Solaire tailgate infrared grills set up so fast and heat up so quickly, only 3 minutes to searing hot temperatures, just like the big backyard Solaires, only this one is light, portable, small. A Solaire grill will make you master of the tailgate with the juiciest, most flavorful food in the parking lot. Take it from me. I've used the thing. The food is delicious. And the fast grilling times, well, they leave you more time to enjoy the pregame festivities. And they also cool down fast so that you're not going to miss a minute of the game. The USA-made Solaire, anywhere, everywhere, and all about infrared grills. They're portable, perfect for any grilling on the go, picnics, camping, RVs, boating, tailgating. And right under the Christmas tree, wrapped up for your favorite friend, whatever holiday you're celebrating, this is a great holiday gift. So amaze your friends with the great food you grill with your Solaire infrared grill. Learn more about these fantastic grills and Solaire's Try Before You Buy demo rental program at besthotgrill.com, besthotgrill.com, besthotgrill.com. I mean, I give you credit because I give a lot of people credit who decided this time around, because clearly more people voted for him this time than either of the other elections. And they decided to sort of figure it out on their own, or with maybe because of X, maybe because of other people. I don't know how people made that decision, but
yeah,
I credit
think for a lot of people. I think I do think COVID started the sort of the impetus for that, because, we were lied to, during that period, so often. And I think for me, the moment that really stuck out as one that was like an eye opener was with Joe Rogan when he got COVID. Okay.
Yeah.
He put a video on Instagram and he looks fine. And he says, listen, I took ivermectin, I got it from a doctor, a Z-Pack, and I'm good after 3 days. Then I watched the same video on CNN and they edited his face to look gray, like a ghost or something like that. And then underneath says, takes horse dewormer, right? And I'm like, how dishonest are you being right now?
Yeah.
Ivermectin has been a drug that's been around and, given to humans for a long time. It won a Nobel Prize and stuff like that. And he got it from a doctor. He didn't go into his barn, and take the horse's dewormer. But they're just trying to mock him. And just to see that concerted effort. And then you go down the rabbit hole and go, wait, who funds CNN? And then you're like, oh, wait a minute. The pharmaceutical companies do. Aha. And now it starts to make sense.
And it also starts to make sense as to why they may all be so terrified of RFK Jr. People are posting these pictures of little girls with smallpox and saying this is what he wants. Do they really think that's what he wants? Or and by the way, he has said, I'm not going to take away your vaccines. He is skeptical. I have met people who have suffered vaccine injuries from the initial COVID vaccines. It's not pretty. It's to have their lives go to hell because of an injection is really, and you can say, oh, it's just a few. Tell that to them, tell that to them. So I think the skepticism definitely has been raised. As someone who now seems to have gotten a lot of information from X, and clearly your post on X went viral, and I think, do you feel like more people appreciated it than didn't appreciate? How was that response?
Yeah, I expected it to, to get a negative reception, because usually posts do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I found that actually it was really positively received, well received, and I'll tell you what. So I have my foot in sort of, both worlds. As I said, I've been a Democrat with views that we're old school. Okay, I think people should have health care. Cool. We should have some gun control measures. I think gay people should get married. I'm okay with abortion. Just normal stuff. I didn't sign up for all the new stuff. I didn't sign up for, the DEI and the, cancel culture vibe and stuff like that. But as somebody who kind of has my foot in both, I think X was a great opportunity to use the community notes and things like that to sort of gauge, what the truth is. It's an opportunity to do that. And I think more so than any other platform.
And it's interesting because so many people turned on Elon Musk after he bought X, and he did it with the intention of preserving people's ability to say what they wanted, to speak their mind. And yet I think I think there are people who are truly fearful of people like Elon and RFK Jr. because they are willing to pick up rocks and see what's underneath them and to say, this needs changing. And I think there are a lot of people who really don't want that change. That to me seems to be the core of the resistance. And then they sort of paint it with this, well, we're really resisting the abortion stuff and we're resisting, racism and all this stuff. And they try to make it look virtuous when in fact, I think it's a lot about power.
Yeah, I think if you look at sort of RFK and his approach and sort of how they've like turned him into a quack, so that they can dismiss what he has to say. If you look at like, how are we doing health wise, right? Pharmaceutical industry is making a whole lot of money. People are sicker, all sorts of diseases and stuff like that. And then again, like, when he talks about the food and you look at the differences, and New York Times should be embarrassed about this article they just wrote.
Yes, because you've just read my mind. Keep going.
There's this little bit about Froot Loops, and they're sort of debunking what he said about Froot Loops being different in Canada than in the US. And then you read this paragraph and it says, oh no, the ingredients are the same, except for where they come from. In Canada, they come from blueberry and carrots, but in the US, it comes from food coloring, bromine, whatever. I can't even pronounce all these chemicals. And they wanted to claim that this is the same because the same ingredients. And it's like, it just proves the point, essentially. And I think parents and a lot of people voted, for the Maha movement, if you will, because they see it too. They don't want their kids to be sick and poisoned by what they're putting in the food.
Well, it is an amazing article. And because you brought it up, it's oh, that's not the right one either. Okay, I can't find it. Oh, here we go. Mr. Kennedy has singled out Froot Loops as an example of a product with too many artificial ingredients, questioning why the Canadian version has fewer than the US version. But he was wrong. This is a line from this. But he was wrong. Now listen. The ingredient list is roughly the same, although Canada's has natural colorings made from blueberries and carrots, while the U.S. product contains red dye 40, yellow 5, and blue 1, as well as butylated hydroxytoluene, or BHT, a lab-made chemical that is used for freshness according to the ingredient label. But he was wrong? This is the kind of stuff that Americans look at and go, how stupid do you think we are? And if you really think that little of us, I don't need you.
Yeah, no question about it. It's like, it's those things, right? Like I said, when you lie in spaces where it's going to be obvious that you are, we can prove it. You literally wrote a paragraph where you lied within the paragraph. You said he was wrong. Then you went on to prove that he was absolutely correct. Like, you can't make this up. It's crazy.
It's so Orwellian. It's almost comical, except that it's frightening because some people truly believe the New York Times is right no matter what. And that is, I hope, starting to fade. Now, when did you, so you raised in Canada. So I think maybe some of your sensibilities come from a childhood and a most of your life being in Canada. That's why I'm so fascinated by your interest in politics here. But now you're a U.S. citizen. You did it legally, by the way, and so I just, do you feel more American or more Canadian, or is that even relevant?
Well, I'll tell you what. My roots, my parents, are Romanian culture. I was raised in a Romanian household. Grew up, like you said, in Canada. But now I've been in the United States for half my life.
Right.
And when it comes to what matters to me most politically, like, I don't really pay attention to what's happening in Canada all that much. Like, occasionally I watch Justin Trudeau get dunked on by this guy, Pierre Poilievre. It's quite funny. Like, it's I almost feel bad for him because he gets so dominated in these little things. He gets mocked incessantly. They're funny to watch, if you will. But in terms of understanding, the dynamic there, I have friends that are still there and they tell me about the shifts. Frankly, I was on a plane with a sort of an ICE agent in Canada. I was on a plane ride back, and he explained to me how bad things have gotten there in the last 8 years. I don't know if you saw, like, Trudeau recently reverse course on, his views on immigration, saying, listen, we made some mistakes. We're going to maybe, I'm things down a little bit, so he's finally come to terms. I think it's too late for him. I think he's done. But yeah, I definitely feel like, at this point, frankly, I'm 50 now, and I'd say the first time I've been proud to be an American was probably within the last year where that shifted.
Interesting. And what do you think it was that made you shift?
To a few things, frankly, but partly thinking like, okay, so listen, no country's perfect, right? And I wrote a tweet a while ago saying, listen, I love this country. I'm blessed to live here and I feel great about being in America. I'm not saying it's the greatest. You can have your pick too, or whatever the case may be, but this country does a lot of good things, right? Like in terms of being an ally to Israel, I think that's like, for me personally, I'm not Jewish, but, I support, the people of Israel. And just in terms of like the freedom that you have here, so many kids today live in this bubble, especially the ones that are raised here, thinking America's awful. And, like, especially, like some young women in Berkeley, not even understanding that our enemies, or many of them, not only are women like refused rights, they're not allowed to speak in public. Like in Afghanistan, now the Taliban has taken over. Women have to cover everything but their eye slit in public, and they're not allowed to actually speak in public. Okay. So when you talk about an apartheid, which is ridiculous, how about a gender apartheid, right? Where women are literally beyond, they're not second class citizens. They're below animals, in a lot of these regions. Yet the same people that supposedly stand totally against that, want women's rights, somehow end up wearing like, Queers for Palestine t-shirts.
It's nonsensical. It's nonsensical. I would encourage them to do a little more history reading. That might help. So you're not alone if you're feeling overwhelmed by the increasing cost of health insurance. And have you had enough of not having control over your healthcare dollars? Well, let me introduce you to Share Right, healthcare done the right way. At Share Right, you're not just a number, you're part of a caring community. And forget about paying excessive premiums. With Share Right, you stand to save 30 to 50% compared to health insurance. That's a lot of money. Think about what you could do with all those savings. But it's more than just the savings. Share Right ensures you have access to your care and the care that you deserve precisely when you need it. From routine checkups to unexpected emergencies, with Share Right, your health care is their top priority. So empower yourself today by taking control of your healthcare costs. Visit shareright.org/Tafoya to learn more and see how much you can save. Share Right, SHARERIGHT.org/Tafoya. That's shareright.org/TAFOYA for healthcare done the right way. It's been so fun to talk to you. And so you think Trudeau, it's probably over for him?
I mean, from what I'm seeing, I think so. I think a lot of people in Canada are fed up with housing costs and, like, again, the immigration issues sort of gotten out of hand in the last 7 to 8 years. And I heard this directly from a government official, who works there. And, he's not ideologically captured. He's just telling me how he sees it. And he says it's been bad the last 8 years.
Well, that's what's so interesting about this election here in the States. I'm not certain it was ideologically captured either. I think it's people just wanting to feel safe, to feel like they could afford the American dream again, to become a famous poker player and live their life doing that. And without, wars breaking out all over the place. I think it just came down to real common sense stuff.
Well, yeah.
And some people just... Go ahead.
Like with Joe Biden, people wanted normalcy, right? And I think this election, people really wanted normalcy. That's why the ad, the Republicans ran an ad over and over and over, essentially saying, it was where, Kamala talks about, reassignment surgeries for transgender inmates. And it's like, she's for they, them, he's for you. And I think that struck a chord with a lot of people just from that alone. A lot of people that are not necessarily all that, deep in the weeds in terms of policy and politics, they saw that and they're like, what the hell? That's crazy, right? Obviously, on the surface, it's crazy. And she tried to distance herself from it, obviously, throughout the campaign. As people mentioned, she didn't really talk about it because they knew it was a losing issue, which gives me hope because when you think of that issue and others, the fact that they're no longer wanting to even talk about it lets people know that, like, it's no longer popular. People have eyes. They watched a male boxer beat up women, right? And was awarded a gold medal for it. Like, people saw that with their own eyes, and you're trying to tell us that that's fair. It isn't.
It isn't. Before I let you go, you've got a new podcast out. You're doing it with your wife, Amanda, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Amanda and my wife, she's bipolar, right? So for those of you that, listen, mental health affects everybody. I imagine in some way you have a friend. So she's pretty open and vulnerable, and we talk about sort of, the struggles and how we communicate, me being, the rock and her being by, the wild and crazy one, if you will.
Yeah.
And, we sort of talk about, that our journey towards, having a child, quite soon. We're doing all that stuff. So it's just a fun podcast where we shoot the shit, if you will.
And I found when I watched you playing poker, I looked at your stuff online. You have a lot of fun. What drew you to poker? What do you love about the game?
So I've always had a competitive mindset, and I would have loved to have been an athlete, but I'm like 5'9" and it was like $130. Like that wasn't happening. I'm too tall to be a jockey, too short to be anything else. But poker satisfied that competitive urge. I started to notice the same people winning, and I was just drawn to it. And then, as a teenager in Canada, I started becoming a professional until I was old enough, at 21, to make the trip over to Las Vegas and play against the big boys and girls. See, it's 2024. Got to add.
Yeah, it's 2020. You've so well done. Well done. I still like your pronouns, your descriptions, luxurious and majestic. Those are phenomenal. It's amazing how you've succeeded. And I imagine what you thought might happen with this career. How is the reality compared to what you hoped for?
So this might surprise most people, but I actually expected this. Like I had very, very high level of confidence, a really great support system with, two parents that loved me and supported me in anything that I wanted. And I've always just had that abundance of, resilience and confidence in myself that I felt like from a very young age. My mother has a video when I was 4 where I said, I'm going to be rich and I'm going to build a house in California out of matches. I was 4 years old. I didn't know. I thought it was going to be in the acting world. It ended up being, poker, but I'll take it.
Yeah, well, you never know. You can do these things splinter off into other things. You've got this massive personality, and now a massive bank account, and that is awesome. Your hopes, your ambitions, and your aspirations were met here in America, Daniel.
Well, the reason for that is because I'm unburdened by what has been, so I could see what will be.
And it was your parents, by the way, who supported you, not a government. And your ambition was your own, and it was unimpeded by.
Yeah. On that note, with my parents, I wanted to share real quick is they came from Romania, and they told me a lot about what communism was like then. Mm-hmm. And I remember going there when I was 10 years old, and how different it was, and my parents describing bread lines, and then like when she brought out some of her policies, it sounded to me like when you say you don't want equality of opportunity, you want equality of outcome. Yeah. And a lot of the things she described sounded to me like a road towards that, and I think unless people have lived there, it sounds like a great idea. If you've just read about communism, you're like, this is great. Everybody has everything they need and it's fantastic. Oh shucks. In a utopian world. Unfortunately, we have evidence that it's never worked. It's never made people prosper. It's never made people happy. And so I'm hopeful that I don't think we ever will in this country go down that path.
I hope not, because I feel like we just dodged a bullet. Because it really, not that we would have become overnight this communist place, but some of the ideas and a lot of these organizations that we've seen, BLM and others, have Marxist leanings, have Marxist roots in their trees, and people need to study this stuff more. And it's not that hard to study, to get easy access to simple explanations about what happened in the past and how, as you say, it's never worked.
Yeah, and study is not watching TikTok.
No, that's correct. That's correct. Although you can find some online courses on YouTube that are super easy to watch. And so, no, but not a little thing on TikTok. Dancing won't teach you that. Daniel, I hope we can do this again. You're a fascinating guy. You've achieved so much, and I wish you and your wife the very, very best. And let's do it again.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So you've heard me talk a lot about Sleep Cream on this podcast, and I'm thrilled to have Steve Cleary from Sleep Cream with us. I've been so impressed by this product, Steve. It's good to see you.
Hi, Michelle. Thanks for having me.
When you talk about sleep, people either get sleep or they don't. And and most people don't ever get as much as they want to. And it seems like almost an epidemic. So how did you guys come up with this formulation of a product that, no one's chewing on a gummy, they're not swallowing a pill? It's amazing.
I mean, that's right. I mean, a lot of people find it unbelievable. You know, you can have a cream that helps you sleep. And you're right. I mean, from our studies, 2/3 of people struggle with enough sleep. And I was one of them. There was a time in my life where I was working all hours of the night. I was drinking at night and just I couldn't sleep, so I'd stay up and I'd work and I'd drink and then I'd eat, get hungry and eat. And that was a very bad combination. And I remember my wife telling me she was going to quit drinking for 30 days for Lent in our church. And my first thought was, not me. If I quit drinking, I can't sleep. But after a while I said, you know what? I mean, if I can't take a break for 30 days, that's really sad. So I did. I committed to completely stop drinking. The challenge was I stopped sleeping. And somebody had given me some CBD product and said, it'll help you sleep. And I tried it. And it did. It worked. And my wife was amazed. I mean, at first she said, it's because you haven't been sleeping for so much. And I'm like, no. I said, second night it worked again. Third night I put it on my dog, who was very anxious. And the dog slept. Seriously.
Oh my gosh.
A little Karen Terrier. And finally my wife tried it like the fourth night and she got a better night's sleep. The problem was, Michelle, is the product just made me sick. It gave me headaches. It had a greasy texture.
And you think that was because
I hated it.
So this was a CBD product. You didn't like the texture.
Product.
It was giving you headaches.
Yeah.
But you thought at least though the sleep part of it was working.
The sleep was working. I mean, I definitely saw a difference in my sleep pattern. So it's like, I have to have this, but I can't, use this product. It was making me more nauseated every night. So I was on the road with my wife. We came back and I was in Dallas and I spent a Saturday going to every major CBD store in Dallas and I bought their absolute best product I could find. And I talked to them about it. And I brought the product home and some of it had a smell to it. Some of it had separated and I just finally threw it all away. And my wife said, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to make my own. And I started the research. And what I found is that CBD oil is very difficult in a topical cream because it has a smell. It has THC, which we don't want, right?
Right.
And it can be greasy. It can separate. It has a shorter shelf life. So I said, what am I going to use? And I discovered CBD crystals. CBD crystals are an isolated form of CBD. So it's a pharmaceutical grade. The CBD we use is 99.8% pure, and they're crystals. And then I found that if you shear them at a small enough particle, you can suspend them in a topical cream. And so we bought, researched and bought top equipment that actually uses nanotech. It actually shears the crystals to a nanoparticle. So it's silky smooth, and it suspended it inside a high quality hydrating cream.
You know what? That's amazing to me when I'm thinking about this because you're right. We're talking about, I would never have known that there was a crystal, except that you've told me that there was a crystal in this lotion because it is so silky smooth and it goes on and it doesn't feel greasy and it doesn't feel heavy and it just goes on and then you forget you even put it on. It's amazing.
Well, the cream we sell, and we work with a small boutique manufacturer that makes it for us. They sell that cream without CBD for $40 to $100 because it is a hydrating cream. And if you read the ingredients, it's made up of a lot of natural organic products. And so it has a high market value even before we add the CBD. The other thing we realized is people weren't using enough CBD. They were using 5 milligrams, 10 milligrams, 20 milligrams. Well, in research around the world, we were looking at research in Australia, looking at research in Israel. I get kind of a research nut when I get cranking on this. People say I'm a mad scientist, but I'm not. I just love really good research. And we researched this and we found that you need to use 100 milligrams, not 25. And so we started putting, how much CBD could we get in 1 ounce of cream? And of course, the stuff that you're offering to your audience is 3,000 milligrams. And Michelle, we're going to be coming out with a 5,000 milligrams. We found a way to do it. It's very difficult to put that much CBD inside the cream. But I mean, we have sent it to our friends and people who use sleep cream, and they're like, this is unbelievable. I am sleeping like I've never slept before.
Okay, so I'm getting a sample of this soon too, right?
You should not have one. We gotta send you some. And then my wife wanted a rose scent. So we're working on a rose scent. We'll have our lavender scent. We'll probably do a natural. But this 5,000 milligram is 10 times higher than what everybody else is selling in the quantity of CBD in the product. And the CBD is the most expensive product, so I understand why they don't want to do it. But we buy direct from the farm, and we're very, very specific of how we gather all our products. There's no middlemen. So, our product would retail for $200, $250 if we were comparable to other stuff in C-stores and gas stations. But we cut out all the middle people. We make it ourselves. And that's why we can offer it.
For people who are still they're like, oh, CBD, I don't know, putting that much on my skin, what's it going to do to me? And is it safe? And how do you reassure those who have the question marks about CBD to begin with?
Well, and those are fair questions, and people should be asking those questions, right? I mean, you just don't want to be putting something on that you don't know. And so our objective is to use the absolute safest procedures and safest administration of CBD, which is topical. You get people eating gummies, which I don't get, I mean, why would you eat a sugar gummy bear to help you sleep? And that's going into your digestive system. That's going into your liver. And there's been studies have shown that CBD and the liver don't really cooperate. They don't mix well. So a topical cream is very safe. Are there people who have had some issues? Very minor. And so some people have had issues with the lavender cream. It says their skin, they're allergic to lavender. And maybe they didn't know. And that may be 1 out of 100 people. And then we've had people that say, the CBD actually had a reverse effect on me. It added anxiety, but that might be 1 in 1,000 cases.
Okay.
But we want to be fully transparent that I believe it is safe to try. If you doubt, you can talk to your doctor and tell them what's in our product, and we encourage you to do that. And if it doesn't work, you call us up and you're going to get a refund. We're not going to ask you to send the product back. We're not going to ask you for pay shipping. We're not going to ask you to give a certain reason. We're just going to give you your money back 100%.
Yeah, I love being able to say that when I endorse the products because, this isn't like, well, send us back the unused part. No, just let them know, and you're in the clear. This is so informative, and I love this stuff, and I keep telling my audience about it. And I think the rose scent, because I did get a sample of that, is so nice. So I talked to you guys a lot in advance of this endorsement, and I had so many questions. I just love this stuff, and I can't recommend it highly enough. And so I think that being able to talk to you and pick your brain about this has been great for our audience to get a full understanding. And we'll do it again. We'll go next level the next time.
Maybe I'll bring some testimonies with me because we've had amazing testimonies from your buyers from your show, Michele. I mean, there are a lot of people that listen to you that are buying sleep cream. Yeah. And do people call and say, it's not working for me, give their money back? Sure. But that's the reason why we can afford to do it is because that's very few people do that.
Yeah.
Almost everybody who uses it loves it. If you subscribe, you get a really good discount. And so people are subscribing, they're using it. This has been a great opportunity to reach your audience, Michele. Yeah. And we look forward to talking to you more, sharing some testimonies, maybe doing some more on social media. It would be really fun.
Sounds good. I will be proud to do it. Hey, thank you so much for your time. We will do this again. Again, folks, the website Sleep Cream, and that's CREME.com.